It is Wednesday, October 18th, 2017. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And I'll tell you what, today was a very rewarding day. All in all, actually. But most specifically because I finally received the ever elusive and virtually mythical 4th stripe on my white belt today. So thank you for all of the people that helped me achieve that. I really appreciate it. My training partners and as well as my coaches. I honestly never dreamed before I started doing jiu-jitsu about exactly how it would feel to be so honored, and I do feel honored. You know, it's only a little piece of tape on my belt, but it signifies a lot. You know, it signifies that I'm no longer just a noob. I'm just pretty much a noob still. So yeah, you know, it was very rewarding. You know, and this whole summer and this fall have really felt like, how should I put it? Like rewards for diligence. You know, it's like I put in the time, I put in the effort, and I'm being rewarded for it. You know, and you know, sometimes it's like at the point that you finally get rewarded, that you're so conditioned to being under the gun, you know, to try and get it to where, you know, you can be rewarded, that you're just like wholly consumed in that. You know, and it's harder to maintain the perspective of the full picture, you know, what you're really working toward when you're buried up to your asshole in it. And when the fucking some sort of reward finally starts coming from it, it gets a little confusing. You know, sometimes you feel a little guilty for finally being acknowledged. You know, it's like I roll with those guys, and I feel just as well, not quite as helpless, but almost as helpless as I ever did. Although I will say, Robert, the guy that I rolled with today on positional sparring, he is a vicious man. Vicious. I know he was playing easy with me. You know, the guy's younger than me, but upstairs, he's got something together that a lot of people don't. You know, and it's really interesting to see somebody that much younger than me, that much more together, you know. But I felt like I was getting some real solid kudos from him today. So that shit. If President Trump honored me with a medal, I could not have felt more honored than getting kudos from Robert. Because, I mean, I know what kind of guy Robert is, and if there's anybody who's a good judge of jiu-jitsu and progress in it, it's him. You know, I've watched him go from being a less certain individual to much more competent. I mean, the guy's way humble. I mean, don't get me wrong. We call him the tumbleweed because he rolls around in such a way that it's similar to a tumbleweed. However, I reflect on it, and I'm always reminded of Paul Muad'Dib in the final fight scene of Dune, where he's going up against what's his face, Fade Rautha, and he says to himself right before he kills Fade, "I will bend like a reed in the wind." And that's what I think about when I watch him roll, because he has the capacity, I think, to be an even better player than he is, in that, like, he's still got that one part of the ego that wants to address a challenge with a challenge. You know what I mean? Like, if you're pressing on a certain thing, that, you know, he'll like instinctively react at first and apply strength. And with me in particular, because I mean that's one of my things, is I play way too hard with my strength and pressure. I need to be working more on actual technique, but I've been trying to do that, slow down a little bit more, give my opponent a little opportunity to a little room to operate, and at least indicate to me where they're trying to go, which would indicate to me which kind of moves or which kind of pressures I need to be putting on them. And Robert's really good about making me mindful of that. But like I was saying, I think that his technique would be even better, as flexible and as dexterous as he is, if he focused more on that one little credo: I will bend like a reed in the wind. Yeah. Well, that's enough jiu-jitsu talk for today. Let's get into our first dance. And as far as what we're actually going to talk about crypto, we were working on collar chokes today in jiu-jitsu. So if I'm a little lightheaded right now, and just to warn you, the first of much has come out of Der Greenhouse. So I don't know, if I start drifting like Joey Diaz during the show, you know why. Because she is fire. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw it down. I'm going to go ahead and put in something a little bit newer from Anthrax. A little bit of Evil Twin here on Coin Metal. And that was Push Monkey with Now. Oh, I'll tell you what, it was a very exciting day. I did a little bit of stuff in the old backyard. A little bit of pruning here and there, a little bit of cleaning up leaves and whatnot. And I've noticed something, and it's a kind of a disturbing trend to me, because it seems like people are letting a bunch of extraneous bullshit kind of get in the way of their objective mind. And this happens all the time. I don't know why I'm surprised by it, honestly. But there's this picture circulating, and it's got Craig Wright as the center. Some guy who could pass for, I don't know what kind of guy he is, on his right, and Roger Ver on his left. Now, all three gentlemen are holding wine glasses, and they're posing for a picture. Now, this is the kind of content that one would yield from walking around a get-together of people who are involved in cryptocurrencies. I don't know why this is such a damning picture. I mean, people are extrapolating from this that Craig Wright and Roger Ver are in cahoots, that they're scamming together. And I mean, really, if this picture scares you, you really should not be involved in cryptocurrencies. As a matter of fact, you should not be involved in making any kind of decisions about cryptocurrencies. Because the thing is this, that all personalities aside, it's what is done that matters. Do I believe that Craig Wright is Satoshi Nakamoto? Pfft, hell no. Hell to the no. I don't. I've never been under the impression that he has. Am I brainwashed by Roger Ver? No. Roger Ver has said plenty of things that I do not agree with. However, at the same time, I've participated in several discussions now about segregated witness and lightning networks. And I mean, I know that's kind of like a pet subject on the show, and I try and get away from it, honestly, because I don't think it deserves the airtime on my show, really. I think that a natural progression of block size is what's been needed this whole time. This whole idea that we need to focus on layer 2, and that's all shit that other people will do with Bitcoin. Don't worry about what other people will do with Bitcoin. make Bitcoin work right. As long as it's working according to the fucking plan, where there are free miners out there that can hop on and hop off of the network whenever the fuck they want, and there are voluntary people actively involved in it, and it's not dependent on some fucking third party, government based or otherwise, everything will be fine. But you know, there's this mentality like, oh, we gotta make it to where it works with banks and Visa. And fuck them. They're who we are running from. I don't know why anybody is under the illusion that we want to work with banks, that we want to work with governments. The thing is we just started this thing. We started it because the available systems and the available currencies that are out there, basically the vast majority of them function as a means to fund wars against us. I mean, war is expensive. I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but war is expensive. You know, you got to train the people, and in the time that you're training them, you got to house them, and you got to feed them, and you got to clothe them, and then you got to arm them, and then you got to deploy them. And all of that shit costs money. Okay, that's money that could just as easily be spent in figuring out how to expand our food supplies. But no, the priorities of the people that have the money that loan it to governments and all that shit, they like war. They like to watch us kill one another. So they only give money to weapons contractors because that's what they want. And when the government comes to them and says, hey, you know what? We'd really like to figure out how to expand this, so could you give us some money for that? No. We want to... Well, how about some guns? We need some new guns. Yeah, sure, no problem, man. We'll write you a fucking check right now. Let's get that done. It's the priorities of the people that have the money that compel the direction of the fucking market. I don't know why people don't understand this. And for the last century or so, actually the last couple of centuries, we've had bankers as the primary source of the money. And, you know, we had gold for a very short period of time, but it was only a representative base. And every time that we got over dependent on that shit, they got over heavy on that fraction of the fractional reserve. And before you know it, there's a fucking bank run, and they don't have the gold to support the fucking the amount of withdrawals, and everybody's fucked. But when we see the same thing happening in crypto, don't be surprised. You know, when we see fractional reserves and whatnot getting overly leveraged and fucked over, don't be surprised. But this system of fractional reserve is what's driven us to where we are. And so the idea, again, of entrusting transactions to third parties, and that's what Lightning Node payment channels are. They are a third party. And I got involved in a discussion on another show, and I'm not going to say their name only because I don't know how much they want to acknowledge the content of the discussion, and so I'm not going to... It's potential for a bunch of back and forth bullshit that honestly I have no interest in participating in. And as a matter of fact, I had no intention of things going the way they did. It wasn't bad per se. It was quite a lively discussion, I thought. And it was a discussion about things I thought should be really discussed. And the fact that they actually diverted the show towards the content of the chat, I thought that to me is more exemplary of, it's more an example, that is, of community participation. Community doesn't mean when somebody starts saying shit that you don't like, that you start judging that person and start calling them names and start talking shit to them about you're going to kick their ass or you know more than they do or what. No, that's not trying to seek consensus. That's not trying to seek community. The thing to do, I think, is to try and understand exactly what it is that the person is saying. Because, what if the flaw is in your own understanding? What if the flaw isn't in what the person is saying, but your understanding of what the person is saying? The problem could be you. You could be the cosmic schmuck in the equation. And I find myself in that position all the fucking time. So, I know it happens. And I readily acknowledge it. The trick is you got to get over your own fucking ego and acknowledge it happens to you all the time too. And really, when it comes to Bitcoin, we have to be thinking about this not only in terms of our own interest, but in the interests of other people. When I get involved in these conversations, I hear the most outlandish shit as responses. And I don't know where people get this stuff. Really, I don't. I've had people suggest to me that they're going to be tunneling their transactions. Well, dude, if it fucking needs to clear through a fucking third party before it gets included into a block, that's the stick point. They could lay out another piece of legislation tomorrow requiring any fucking registered entity and certain entities that perform certain functions are already defined as being needing to have license and whatnot. But what if there were some qualification on that the SEC were to say, for every transaction that happens on your service, it has to have this ID queue or this ID on it, or it can't be legally included into a block, and then the onus becomes on the person providing the service to include the transaction in the block. Now, of course, we can always escape the jurisdiction of the United States digitally, because that's the realm that we're occupying here. But then the question becomes, what if you get caught? Because clearly you're violating the law because you're trying to circumvent this condition put in there. Now you're a fucking criminal. Now, see, why would you want to introduce that scenario into the equation when you do not have to right now? The miners are supposed to process the transactions if they fit according to their conditions or the established conditions that are out there. And they're supposed to be trying to seek consensus amongst one another as to what the state of affairs actually is according to a set grouping of parameters. That's the way this shit is supposed to operate. We're supposed to fucking say, you know what, I like these BIPs, I'll flag support for them, or I'll go on the mining pool that flags support for them. This is the version of Bitcoin I am going to mine. And you're supposed to come to some sort of consensus. As far as nodes are concerned, I think that nodes should be completely agnostic of BIPs. I think they should just propagate transactions. It's like if they fit within, the parameters of available BIPs that are actually being mined, maybe there's a threshold that they would meet, so if it's 15% of the hashing power of the network is going to this particular chain, propagate the transactions for it. If it's 0.0003%, maybe take a look at what they're actually propagating, and if it's incongruent with the current protocols out there, then fucking bounce their transactions. Instead, what's happening is they're saying, oh, we don't want to process Bitcoin transactions anymore. We want to process, or we want to propagate SegWit transactions. So we're going to set our nodes to where they only propagate SegWit transactions and not original Bitcoin transactions. That's what's going on right now with the network. Or I think anyway. I looked at a fucking pie chart, and 97% of the nodes out there are supposedly flagging support for, I guess, BIP9 through whatever, the BIP 141 or whatever it is. I quit paying attention to that crap. As soon as I figure out it's like some additional inclusion into segregated witness, I immediately, like, my brain just like turns off. I immediately lose interest in it, because I don't have any interest in taking the instructions of where the fucking money goes out of the encrypted block, placing it outside the encrypted block, and then talking shit about the standard form of the information being encrypted in the encrypted block, and saying that that's some sort of maleation risk. I'm sorry, when you put the fucking information where the coins are supposed to go on the outside of the encrypted block, that opens it up to be maleated. And the group of people that are going to be potentially maleating it is this fucking Lightning Network that you're going to place in charge of processing the transactions. And now, there's been all kinds of statements to me about exactly how this is supposed to function. Okay, and I asked very, very basic questions. Who is going to host the payment channel? This is a very, very basic fucking question. If you read the goddamn white paper for Lightning Network, the thing is supposed to be able to keep a payment channel open for 1,000 blocks. Where the fuck is the transaction going to be for the 1,000 blocks, the 8 days? Where the fuck is it going to be? You're trying to tell me it's not going to be occupying some server on a private server or some shit like that, or that bounce around on somebody's private Lightning Network? Give me a fucking break. You don't have the money. If you're capable of processing 40,000 transactions on this thing, and you're potentially going to have it open for 1,000 blocks, that's not the description of some like singular transaction that you just bounce from these mystery nodes, from one mystery node to another, until it gets included into a block. That's not the description of that. Okay, the description that the Lightning Network is laying out is a payment channel will be like a phone line that's temporarily created that'll link various entities, and they will probably all be commercial entities. And they will be bouncing the transactions between one another. Now, it's a wonderful fucking thing, right? But it's not what we signed up here for in Bitcoin. Because what it reduces the miners to is just a settlement layer. And if they don't like the conditions that the nodes are putting out there, their only recourse is to simply drop off. I mean, they could try and get to be the dominant chain, but that's going to be a hell of a lot harder if nobody else is doing transactions in the protocols that you're supporting. You see how that works? And it's not reverse compatible. Segregated witness is not reverse compatible. So you got to thank your lucky stars that Bitcoin Cash bothered to maintain the fucking network the way it was prior to segregated witness, because you're probably going to have to go back to it. I mean, if the intention is not to increase the block size, but in fact to force all of the transaction processing off chain, which is in fact what segregated witness Lightning Network is all about. Don't fucking kid yourself that it's anything else. Anyway, enough ranting for the moment. Let's go ahead and throw back into some music, and then we will break down into some articles. I got a shit ton in the waiting in the wings on my on my browser, and fuck, I'm not entirely certain what to play at the moment. So this seems like a good one. Irrelevant Thoughts by Prong. So let's go ahead and throw that down. Here it is, Irrelevant Thoughts by Prong, here on CoinMetal. And that was Static X with Permanence. As if anything is permanent, right? And anyway, yeah, it's funny. People make predictions about cryptocurrencies and the cryptocurrency market. It's just like, why? I try to, but it's only based on what I already know. I mean, I could be wrong, you know, and I entertain that possibility all the time. However, a lot of times I end up being right, and it's actually surprising to me, given the fact that I have listened to a lot of people be very, very wrong about how things are actually going to play out in cryptocurrencies. And you know, we see pushes in Russia and China for regulation and better regulation and all that, and immediately we see the response that cryptocurrency traders and people that are participating in cryptocurrencies, they don't stop what they're doing. They just adjust. They adjust and continue. And I'm pretty sure this is the way it's going to continue, that there's going to be a whole lot of bluster on one side, there's going to be non-compliance on the other side, and then there's going to be shut the fuck up on the other side. I mean, that's just the way it works. You know, it's like the shit continues, and then on top of that, it gets more profitable. And so it's like, well, you know, maybe we should just shut the fuck up and get rich. I mean, it seems to be what everybody else is doing. Why not? And I'm going to read this article, but just to let you know, I posted a real funny about this. There's this picture of a guy with a trench coat on, and he looks a lot like Abe Lincoln from behind here, but it's got JP Morgan written on his back, and then We Pay written across the back of a t-shirt worn by what appears to be a kid about somewhere between 7 and 10 years old. And on my Twitter, I responded to this, and where the hell, I'll just read it, because I'm sure I worded it perfectly, really, and I know that I won't do any justice to it if I misread it here. Where is it? No, that's not it. Oh, there we go. Here we go. So I responded to it, and I think mine was the first response to it, and it's, "Oh, don't worry about that, Timmy. None of my vans have windows." And in the picture I put below is a white van with this fucking maniac's face printed on it, and then free candy. Honestly, I'm sorry, you know, I don't know if that makes me sick or something, but that's what comes to mind when I look at this picture, is that this gentleman is leading this child off to be deflowered or something in the back of a windowless white van. But anyway, I digress. I'll read the article now that I've kind of prefaced it with silliness. And if I can find the damn thing. I know it was on CoinDesk, and I've got like 500 million tabs open on my browser. And I don't know how, but I moved the tabs over to the side of my browser, which I don't like it. I'm gonna have to figure out how to move that back at some point or another. See, I typically use my computer while I'm in perfect darkness, as I am now, and a lot of times I hit keys that I don't intend to hit, and that's actually given us a lot of meme words that we wouldn't have otherwise, like hodl or prawn, spelled with a zero. These are little things that happened at 3 o'clock in the morning while somebody was, or pwn. That's another good one. I like pwning people. Anyway, let's get back to that link, if I can actually find it now. There we go. Don't worry about that, Timmy. None of my vans have windows. JP Morgan buys bullish WePay in rare fintech move. This is by William Suberg, and it was written approximately 12 hours ago. And goddamn CoinDesk, or Cointelegraph, or who? Wait a minute. Let's check and verify. I was pretty sure this was on Cointelegraph or CoinDesk. Okay. There's a more in-depth story about this on Bloomberg, and so we're going to read it directly off of Bloomberg. And actually, there might even be an even more in-depth. Let's check and verify. It's a mantra. Get to know it well. Alright. We'll do it from Bloomberg here. JP Morgan to buy payment firm WePay in rare fintech acquisition. And this is actually by Jennifer Serrane. No penis. This is written on October 17th, 2017 at approximately 4:09 p.m. EDT. JP Morgan Chase & Co. plans to acquire the startup WePay to help its 4 million small business customers accept payments faster. The deal will let the bank's customers integrate payments into the software they use. New York-based JP Morgan said Monday in an emailed statement. Without disclosing terms, WePay, founded in 2008, already works with software platforms like GoFundMe and FreshBooks, JP Morgan said. JP Morgan has already formed partnerships with financial technology startups Bill.com and On Deck Capital Inc. for its small business unit. While JP Morgan and WePay considered partnering, ultimately they decided the payments firm would be more successful under the bank. Matt Kane, Chief Executive Officer of the bank's Merchant Services Division, said in a telephone interview, quote, "This is the first acquisition we bought of this kind," Kane said. Small business across JP Morgan is an enormous strategic focus for us. We know it is the lifeblood of the economy as well as one of the biggest growth sectors that we have. Bill Clerico, founder and CEO of WePay, said he's also been asked to help turn JP Morgan into a top-tier technology employer in the San Francisco Bay Area, where his team will continue to operate as JP Morgan's payments innovation incubator. Interesting. They get to keep their little titles. Well, this is not surprising to me, and as a matter of fact, from what I understand, there was. Wait a minute. Oh, hold on. The thing is choking out on me, but we'll get back online in just a moment here. It's just one of those things that happens, folks. Sorry about that. We kind of disconnected there for a moment. But we're back again. Anyway, so this JP Morgan to buy payment firm WePay in rare fintech acquisition. This is on Bloomberg. Bloomberg.com, that is. And yeah, this is not unexpected, nor is it surprising for me. I had anticipated the possibility that yes, J.P. Morgan and Goldman Sachs and other big banks, big institutional banks, would be purchasing smaller units like this WePay. And for whatever reason, I think my browser is causing a lot of fucking issues here, so I'm just going to close everything on that. And I'm going to evacuate it because, man, it's been giving me a bunch of fucking bullshit lately, and I don't like that, man. I don't fucking like it. But, these things happen. Anyway, we've got plenty of content out of that article as far as that's concerned. J.P. Morgan, again, they buy companies. They buy companies like... It's funny, they do things just like the Chinese do, except they do it with money. Like, the Chinese, they're very opaque about their policy of simply copying other people's shit and then trying to saturate the market with their version of the shit to delete the other person. You know what I mean? That's like their entire market model, or at least QQ's market model. I read their white paper on this show at one point or another for their payments platform service that they want to put on. And that's one of those things that I probably should have titled the entire episode about, because it was kind of emblematic for a lot of the same behavior that we're seeing from the legacy banks and investment brokerages and whatnot, that they are looking at cryptocurrencies and they're trying to figure out how to get a good into the niche, right? And so like they're working at it in multiple ways. Okay? And one of the ways now apparently is to simply just buy us, And I would expect at some point or another they are going to buy Ripple entirely. But that's neither here nor there. And it's one of the problems with being a quote-unquote company, and one of the reasons why I like Verge. We're just software. We're not actually a quote-unquote company. Mostly volunteers and shit. Sorry, I had to hit up the water there. I had something in my throat there. But yeah, so JP Morgan getting into the crypto space even deeper. The penis thrusts. But it's nothing to be surprised at, nothing to be fearful about. It's just something to understand as a reality. I mean, and as a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure the white paper, Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper, suggested that there would be some attempts at co-option via corporate or government influence, and I still think we're in a position where it's not really their call. They don't really get to tell us what the fuck to do with our shit yet. But they are working on it. And one thing that reminds me of is during the conversation I had during that show during somebody else's show today, somebody implied that this whole Lightning Network business was quote unquote years away. No. That's fucking complacency talking, bro. They've been working and testing this shit behind the scenes for the last 2 years. I would not be surprised if they had done all the development 2 years before that. You got to remember, this shit has been live and in people's faces since 2009. We went from being a rumor to being one of the fastest fucking growing industries on planet Earth in that time. You cannot tell me they don't have laboratories with their little sandbox test nets of Bitcoin, where they've got simulated miners, simulated nodes, and they're trying to figure out the best way to address us, and all that shit is going on. I assure you. They wouldn't be so confident as to be showing up at and actually initiating and running various trade shows involving cryptocurrencies, and their presence at these things, to me, it indicates they probably are like primary funders of them, and they're looking for various companies to potentially acquire, such as we just saw with WePay. But I think the scenario I laid out in the Twitter feed there was pretty accurate. That these guys at WePay, they have no idea what they're getting themselves into by involving themselves with JP Morgan Chase. It's quite entertaining, honestly. But in the longer term, it all depends on how things lay out. I'm of the opinion, whether or not this is actually factual or whether it'll actually go this way, I'm of the opinion that if the mining will continue to go as it is, and that things will go as they are, and that we're not really going to see this migration to off-chain bullshit for everybody. That the initiating factors won't actually complete as needed. That's just my opinion. Now, whether it actually plays out that way, it's anybody's fucking guess. Anybody's fucking guess entirely. And don't let people fool you into believing that they have answers concerning this shit. There is no expert above you when it comes to how to dedicate your monetary value. I don't give a fuck if we're talking about a government entity or a corporate entity or Satoshi Nakamoto himself. Certainly not me. Put your fucking money where you want to. Spend it how you want to. Use it how you want to. This is a deeper portion of the point I was getting to earlier, is that the values a society has is reflected in how it spends its money. And if the people issuing the money spend their money to make war, that's how everything is going to get valuated. And that's where we're at right now, where we're literally being forced to fund wars against ourselves and wars against other people via the basic transactions that we do to survive. That's a poor situation to be in. With cryptocurrencies, we're actually given the ability to change the value system behind the money. Now, think about it this way. Do you think that the people involved in mining Doge would mine Doge if it were somehow linked to arms sales for some sort of terrorist organization, or that it was being utilized specifically to do that, or that there was some sort of tax on every Dogecoin transaction that was applied to supporting, say, ISIS or some other terrorist organization, like, I don't know, the IMF or the UN or something like that. No. I can tell you right now they wouldn't. They'd fucking turn off their miners, or better yet, they would switch them over to another currency that isn't doing that. And they have that choice now. And it's what makes these things like the crypto ruble and JP Morgan Chase coin so fucking entertaining. Now, I know that there will be some segment of humanity that uses these coins, but it's only because they don't think they have a choice in the matter. But when it comes to cryptocurrencies, I think that people are being expected to make a big enough jump with regard to going away from cash entirely and only using things like credit cards. And then on top of that, you're expecting them to make the jump from a currency that they know, which is their national currency, to a currency that isn't issued by their country. And they understand what that means. They understand that their transactions will no longer be benefiting just their countries, their own country, but also whatever organization is issuing this coin, which in this case will probably be somebody like JP Morgan Chase and Microsoft and IBM and Intel, all working together to make their own little fucking cryptocurrency that they're going to try and force everybody to use. But see, there's already a problem with diffusion of responsibility. There's already that. Okay? It's already gotten bad enough that we've gotten to creating our own cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin wouldn't exist if it were any other way. If the tax funds that are accrued every year were being dedicated solely to projects that are within your contiguous national borders, we would not be here right now. We would not be talking about Bitcoin right now. We would not be talking about cryptocurrencies because the average person would be satisfied with the lifestyle that they have right now. Because their currencies would not be being devaluated at a fucking breakneck rate to create this whole fucking war fighting apparatus. And this whole fucking international projection of force and shit. That shit costs money, people. It costs money. You know, it's not something where you buy the gun, you put it in somebody's hand and you're golden. No. No, you gotta retrain that fucker all the time. You gotta keep him busy with paperwork and shit. You gotta make him do reports about how much he scratches his ass or whatever. Or how many clothes he goes through in a week. That shit costs money. And in the future, in the not so distant future, we're going to be prioritizing things like clean air and clean water and clean food far higher than clean barrels for guns. I mean, the prioritization of the maintenance of this projection of force, it creates a whole bunch of fucking cruft. Now, I'm for national defense, and some would call me an isolationist for this, but I'm also for free and open markets. None of these fucking trade agreements, fuck all that bullshit. You're talking about trying to set preconditions on trade and whatnot that will create penalties for lateness or tardiness or whatever inconsistencies within the market, and will create a whole bunch of bureaucracy that will take money out of that market and have it applied to things that don't sustain that market. And you cannot continue to do that. We're at the point right now where we're having to create our own monetary units just to be able to spend money and survive. I mean, that is such an indictment of our time and of the state of our quote-unquote traditional banking and money systems or monetary systems. You know, you really got to fuck the pooch for the users to be looking to create their own currency to get around you. I mean, you've got to be like caught doing a selfie while you're mounting a Saint Bernard or something like that. Anyway, let's throw in a little bit of FUD here. I haven't repicked a whole bunch of tabs here, so I'm like having to shoot in the dark. I don't know, the Twitter feed is usually pretty good for picking out stuff, but I'll need another music break for that, and we're just not there yet. Oh, we talked a little bit about that, so... Oh, wait. Oh, this is even more FUD. 2 of them from CNBC. And this one is special. I think you guys will like this. CNBC, Bitcoin briefly plunges nearly 9% on fears of greater oversight from U.S. regulators. This is by Evelyn Cheng. Cheng. Clearly no penis. Published 13 hours ago. Updated 7 hours ago. Bitcoin fell on Wednesday after indications of greater scrutiny from U.S. regulators. At one point in the day, the digital currency declined by nearly $500, or about 8.7%, to a low of 5109.70 before regaining some of that lost ground, according to CoinDesk. The day's low marked the digital currency's lowest level since Thursday, the website data showed. Bitcoin recovered afternoon trading from its worst levels to trade 3% lower near 54.10, up more than 5 times in price for the year, according to CoinDesk. And this is probably what we're going to end up spending our time on tonight. The U.S. Commodity Futures Trading Commission on Tuesday released a report titled A CFTC Primer on Virtual Currencies. The report said as a commodity, virtual currencies like Bitcoin fall under the oversight of the Commission when they are used in, quote, in a derivatives contract, or if there is fraud or manipulation involving virtual currency traded in interstate commerce. Whatever, man. That's a whole bunch of bullshit right there. Bitcoin 3 months performance, and gives us a nice little chart there. The Chicago Board Options Exchange said it plans to launch its own Bitcoin derivatives trading products by early next year. Other digital currencies fell Wednesday as well. Ethereum briefly fell more than 7%, but was last trading 4% lower near 303. Bitcoin hit a record high Friday of $5,856, up 6 times in value for the year. Those gains came ahead of potential splits in Bitcoin into at least 2 other digital currencies in November. Investors bet the original Bitcoin would hold its own after those events, but just as Bitcoin rose after its August 1st split into Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. Quote, I think we're seeing some profit taking, said Benjamin Roberts, co-founder and CEO of Citizen Hex, an Ethereum-focused startup backed by 3 Canadian venture funds. Quote, these markets are risky and many people try to reduce their risk by trading around the volatility. Bitcoin has proved resilient to regulatory scrutiny so far. It plunged $2,000 in September after a Chinese government crackdown on digital currencies, but has since more than recovered those losses. Thank you, Evelyn. Always good. She is a very good author. I must say, out of all of the people that I read, Evelyn Cheng must be the only person who actually reads her shit aloud. I'm dead serious on this. There's so many fucking grammatical and spelling errors in these fucking articles, like from CoinDesk and Cointelegraph. It's kind of embarrassing, really. I mean, we're supposed to be all fucking intelligent and shit, but we're getting caught copying and pasting our own shit. Anyway, yeah. my call on this, and this is just me, is that November is still half a month away. So the idea that we were just going to see a straight suck out of fucking altcoins and back into Bitcoin and consolidation over time, silliness. There's going to be some ups and downs, but for the moment, I'm still calling altcoins on a downtrend. There is still desire to consolidate volumes on exchanges of quote-unquote Bitcoin to take advantage of the possible split. And that's just natural behavior. We saw it before with other currencies, and we've seen it now with Bitcoin. You know, and we will see it again with Bitcoin and other currencies. The thing to be watching out for, though, is the amount of slippage each currency experiences. It's different. If you look at the charts, they all look similar, but there are some significant differences. And the thing to be paying attention to also is how many people are accumulating and not dispensing. You know, during these sell-offs, people are buying cheaper and cheaper coins. Okay, when they buy Ethereum when it fucking dips 30% or whatever the fuck percent it was that it said on here, you know, that's significant. Same thing with Bitcoin tanking 9%. That's a fucking profit making point right there. You fucking buy in it. If you were lucky enough to buy in there around $5,200, you're already back in profit, man. No complaints there. Damn near 10%, I should say. So, you know, this is interesting, but I'm really going to put more weight on this, and it looks like it might actually even occupy most of this episode. This Lab CFTC, a CFTC primer on virtual currencies. That's going to be good. It's 20 pages, not too much. Nice little bite. The font looks pretty big. Lots of space in here. So, yeah, we ought to be able to breeze through this puppy tonight. No problem. As a matter of fact, we may go deeper than just this. But so far, yeah. This is looking entirely edible, and we will do so on the other side of a music break. We've got a little bit of crowbar playing, and I don't play enough crowbar on this show. I really don't. I think I need to up my crowbar in my repertoire, but yeah, crowbar. I think I've got. I want to say I've got one of the newer ones that they made. I just, for whatever reason, never uploaded it to this machine, but that's something for the future, not necessarily today. We've already played some Fear Factory. Kingdom of Sorrow. Fuck yeah. That's how we'll go. So God's Law in the Devil's Land is what we're going to be throwing down next here on Coin Metal. And that was Ultimate Authority by Prong. Sorry, I got a little long on the music there, but had to do a little minor refresh just to put me in the right mindset to deal with doing a live read of something by the CFTC. But any case, we are going to read it because it's interesting to try and get some sort of perspective on how governing bodies actually view cryptocurrencies. So here it is. This is by Lab CFTC, a CFTC primer on virtual currencies. And this is written in red right below it here. Please note that Lab CFTC cannot and will not provide legal advice.
If you have specific questions regarding your activities and whether they conform to legal or regulatory requirements, you should consult with a qualified lawyer or appropriate expert. Labs CFTC has no independent authority or decision-making power and cannot independently provide or create an expectation for legal or regulatory relief. Communications from Labs CFTC shall not create estoppel against CFTC or other enforcement actions. Any formal requests for relief must be addressed by relevant CFTC staff or, as necessary, by the Commission. Labs CFTC will work with entities on such requests with the appropriate offices through established processes. This primer format is intended to be an educational tool regarding emerging fintech innovations. It is not intended to describe the official policy or position of the CFTC or to limit the CFTC's current or future positions or actions. The CFTC does not endorse the use or effectiveness of any of the financial products in this presentation. It is organized as follows. Overview. What is a virtual currency? Bitcoin and related technologies, potential uses of virtual currencies and blockchain technologies. The role of the CFTC. The CFTC's mission. Sample permitted and prohibited activities. ICOs, virtual tokens, and CFTC oversight. Risks of virtual currencies. Operational risks, speculative risks, cybersecurity risks, fraud, and manipulation risks. Holy shit, we might actually learn something from this. Overview of virtual currencies. What is a virtual currency? Although precise definitions offered by others are varied, an IRS definition provides us with a general idea. 1. Virtual currency is a digital representation of value that functions as a medium of exchange, a unit of account, and/or a store of value. Number 2. In some environments, it operates like a, quote, real currency, but it does not have legal tender status in the U.S. 3. Virtual currency that has an equivalent value in real currency or that acts as a substitute for real currency is referred to as, quote, convertible virtual currency. Bitcoin is one example of a convertible virtual currency. Now, one point of note there, CFTC, it's only convertible if a conversion actually happens. See, if somebody actually just buys something directly with a cryptocurrency, then it's a direct barter or exchange. A direct exchange and or barter as legally defined. This whole convertible currency bullshit just wouldn't apply there. Continuing on. 4. Bitcoin can be digitally traded between users and can be purchased for or exchanged into US dollars, euros, and other, I should say, quote, real or virtual currencies. Now let's see. What is Bitcoin? Number 1. Bitcoin is currently the largest convertible virtual currency by market capitalization, close to $72 billion in August of 2017. And I do want to make one additional note on that convertible bullshit. The only thing that defines value is you, not the CFTC, not the SEC, not any of these organizations, not the IRS, none of them. Okay, God does not define value for you. You define value. And so, if you decide that you want to exchange something, whether it be a $20 bill or a cheeseburger for some digital currency, whether it be Dogecoin or Verge or Bitcoin, that's between you and the other person. That's what makes it quote unquote barter. especially if it doesn't actually involve any third parties. Continuing on. 2. Bitcoin was created in 2008 by a person or group that used the name Satoshi Nakamoto with the belief that, quote, what is needed is an electronic payment system based on cryptographic proof instead of trust, allowing any two willing parties to transact directly with each other without the need for a trusted third party or a Lightning Network payment channel. 3. Bitcoin. 1 is pseudonymous or partially anonymous in that an individual is identified by an alphanumeric public key /address. 2. Relies on cryptography and unique digital signatures for security based on public and private keys and complex mathematical algorithms. And 3. Runs on a decentralized peer-to-peer network of computers and miners that operate on open source software and do, quote, work to validate and irrevocably log transactions on a permanent public distributed ledger visible to the entire network. Actually, it's visible to the entire planet if you bother to look. 4. Solves the lack of trust between participants who may be strangers to each other on a public ledger through the transaction validation work noted in the sub-bullet above. And 5. Enables the transfer of ownership without the need for a trusted central intermediary. And that's what we want to keep. What is the difference between public and private ledger systems? 1. Certain virtual currencies operate on public distributed ledger systems that capture, quote, blocks of transactions. There is no inherent trust in this decentralized system. Virtual currencies create an economic incentive for dispersed, independent computers or groups of computers around the world to confirm transactions and perform verifiable, quote, work that creates consensus to, and that's kind of weird definition of it, to publish a new block of transactions on the public ledger in exchange for a payment of the applicable virtual currency. 2. Private/permissioned distributed ledger networks typically have some degree of trust between participants. 1. Private ledger systems allow a network of known participants to share transaction information between themselves more efficiently because they don't have to share it with everybody else. 2. While cryptography and consensus may still be involved in private ledger systems, these systems do not necessarily involve a virtual currency that may serve as the economic incentive for miner or validator participation in public networks. Sample potential use cases of virtual currencies. 1. Store value. Like precious metals, many virtual currencies are a, quote, non-yielding asset, meaning they do not pay dividends or interest, but they may be more fungible, divisible, and portable. 2. Limited or finite supply of virtual currencies may contrast with real, quote, real, it's real hilarious seeing this, it may contrast with real, in parentheses, fiat currencies. 2. Trading. Trading in virtual currencies may result in capital gains or losses. 2. Note that trading in virtual currencies may involve significant speculation and volatility risk. See virtual currency risks section below. And we will. 3, you know what? I really hope under virtual currency risks, they list, quote, wrecked, R-E-K-T. 3, payments and transactions. Some merchants and online stores are accepting virtual currencies in exchange for physical and digital goods. i.e. payments. Number 2, some public blockchain systems rely on the payment of fees in virtual currency form in order to power the network and underlying transactions. Two guesses who they're talking about there. Sounds a lot like Ethereum. 4, transfer/move money. Domestic and international money transfer, e.g. remittances, in order to increase efficiencies and potentially reduce related fees. Sample potential use cases of blockchain/distributed ledger technology. Blockchain or distributed ledger technology underpins many virtual currencies, but can also be used within private permissioned ledger systems. Versions of public and private systems may be used by, number 1, financial institutions, trading and payment platforms/clearing and settlement. 2, regulatory reporting, compliance, and audit. Number 3, know your customer, KYC/anti-money laundering. Say untaxed transactions right there. 4, repurchase agreement transactions, repos, short-term borrowing of securities. Bullet point number 2, governments. 1, general records management. Number 2, title and ownership's records management, ergo real property deeds and title transfer. 3, regulatory reporting and oversight. And I just want to take a moment right here. CFTC, I really hope you're listening. And, as much as I'm bagging on you and shitting on you right now, my apologies. But honestly, I find your function to be completely silly because you set up expectations for safety, and really, you don't really do that. I mean, every time that all of these frauds are caught, there's indications that there were people investigating the fraud, but there's no indication that they did anything to actually stop it until somebody else sues them. And then it's indicated that somehow or another you guys were involved in investigating this shit. That's kind of like, it could be on our end that it looks like you weren't actually involved in any kind of investigation at all until it was too late to do anything about it. And with regard to governments and using blockchains and distributed ledger technology, I just want to point out to you that if you're doing all of this on private blockchains mined by private miners that are not being rewarded for the effort of mining, there is nothing to stop fraudulent behavior from actually happening. You will only know long after it has happened. And so this whole inclusion of blockchains into the shit, it's not going to stop anything. I mean, you're going to find out after somebody is suing somebody else because somebody died or somebody lost a shit ton of money or something like that. It's reactive. It's not going to help you actually stop shit. Anyway, continuing on. 3 bullet point, cross-industry, smart contracts, i.e. self-executing agreements, which will not help you. Number 2, resource/asset sharing agreements, ergo allowing rental of a personal car left behind during a vacation or allowing rental of excess computer or data storage. Hey, I wouldn't mind doing that. 3, digital identity, ergo proof of identity when entering into a contract. Yeah, whatever. The role of the CFTC. I was waiting for us to get to that. 1. The mission of the CFTC is to foster open, transparent, competitive, and financially sound markets. By working to avoid systemic risk, the Commission aims to protect market users and their funds, consumers, and the public from fraud, manipulation, and abusive practices related to derivatives and other products that are subject to the Commodity Exchange Act, CEA. I just want to tell you, you guys are doing a shit job. Because we shouldn't have to sue Goldman Sachs for us to find out that they've been involved in very fraudulent behavior for years. We find this out after the lawsuits have been settled, after the FOIAs have caused the court records to be opened up. That's when we find out about this shit. Okay, it's not when the CFTC comes in like Superman and catches the shit when it happens. No. We find out about it while somebody is suing because of a significant material loss caused by the people that you just kind of like mysteriously let skate on this shit all the time. Anyway, continuing on. Number 2. To foster the public interest and fulfill its mission, the CFTC will act. Number 1, to deter and prevent price manipulation or any other disruptions in market integrity. Yeah, whatever. Number 2, to ensure the financial integrity of all transactions subject to the CEA and the avoidance of systemic risk. Number 3, to protect all market participants from fraudulent or other abusive sales practices and misuse of customer assets. And number 4, to promote responsible innovation and fair competition among boards of trade, other markets, and market participants. Bullet point 3, responsible innovation is market enhancing. Dude, we do all that shit for free. We don't even need you to help. I mean, seriously, man, Twitter and Reddit do your job for you. You don't even have to worry about it, man. We got it covered. Anyway, continuing on. Virtual currencies are commodities. Who the fuck are you to define what virtual currencies are? You're nobody. This is a global phenomenon. It's not just happening in the United States, which is the restriction of your fucking jurisdiction. So fuck off with this. Anyway, continuing on. Virtual currencies are commodities. Bullet point 1. The definition of, quote, commodity in the CEA is broad. No shit. Number 1. It can mean a physical commodity such as an agricultural product, ergo wheat, cotton, or natural resource, ergo gold, oil. Number 2, it can mean a currency or interest rate. Number 3, the CEA definition of, quote, commodity also includes, quote, all services, rights, and interests in which contracts for future delivery are presently or in the future dealt in. Bullet point 2, the CFTC first found that Bitcoin and other virtual currencies are properly defined as commodities in 2015. Gosh, it only took you fucking 7 years to figure that one out, huh? And you know what? You're still wrong, so fuck off. Anyway, bullet point 3, the CFTC has oversight over futures, options, and derivatives contracts. Good, I don't give a fuck about any of those. I give a fuck about the coin. You guys can go fuck off with your futures and your options and your derivatives. These are completely fucking useless with regard to cryptocurrencies. Why? Because I can buy cryptocurrencies. And the market for them is steady. Meaning on the production end. If there were ever real dips in the production, you know, like as of September, for some fucking reason, during 3 months, thereafter, because of the rainy season in Vietnam or China, or this one section of China, mining gets tougher. And so there's less Bitcoin produced during... That doesn't fucking happen. It doesn't fucking happen. If there's fucking rain in Vietnam and they can't fucking mine in Vietnam, you know what happens?
The fucking difficulty adjusts. Everybody says, holy shit, that difficulty just got easier. I'm going to fire up the miners I've had in my fucking closet for the last 3 months. And then the fucking payload is sucked up by the network. That's what fucking happens. There's no fucking dip. There's no reason for a fucking derivative if there's no dip in production. You don't have to carry over for a dip in production, a seasonal dip in production like you experience in gold mining, in silver mining, in fucking oil drilling. That's where you need futures. That's where you need options. That's where you need derivatives contracts. You don't need any of that shit when it comes to mining. Now, I can see where derivatives contracts could work, or like futures contracts could work with regard to mining and its relative, its return on investment percentage. You want to fucking bet on that? Okay, good for you. But you know what? That's not actually going to impact what's happening on the network. It might incentivize more miners because then they would actually have some sort of perception or additional skin in the game and have a little more surface sensitivity to what's going on within the mining sectors. But other than that, I don't really see a need for futures options. Fuck all that shit. I don't need that. Those are further abstractions of value that all rely on trust. And as a matter of fact, I should look up this one article. There was an article about R3 and how some of the people were suing because the smart contract that they set up to begin with pegged Ripple at a much lower rate than it currently is, and so they're losing a lot of money by sticking to the contract, and they want out of the contract so they can make the fucking real money that they can if they sold those same Ripple out on the fucking open market. And like I said, I gotta look into that, but that shows you the folly of things like futures options, all that bullshit in cryptocurrencies, because overlaying all of this crap is fiat currencies and what's happening with fiat currencies. And people just, it's like it shocks me. Okay, I listen to Peter Schiff all the fucking time, and he will tell you all day long about the fucking inflation of fiat currencies and what that does to the price of everything. But for the life of me, I do not understand why he does not see how this is like the factor, one of the primary factors behind the mass value increase in Bitcoin that we've seen over the last 6 months. This is due to fiat inflation. We are witnessing the fucking global de-dollarization, and the impact is they're looking for other currencies to value shit in, and they're looking at the electricity that they're burning for mining Bitcoin, and they're saying, you know what? That costs a lot more than the fucking face value of the dollar, man. We gotta kind of circumvent that shit, and I'm gonna charge more for my Bitcoin. That's what you're seeing. I don't understand it. I look at economists all day long, and the only person I've heard that I regard as an intelligent person who's even repeated this has been John McAfee. I mean, I don't understand it. I just don't understand. I mean, I understand him doing it because when he was running for president, he was the only guy on the fucking stage that sounded like he was living in the 21st century. The rest of them were back in the 50s somewhere with their fucking Red Scare bullshit. And anyway, I digress. Bullet point 4. The CFTC's jurisdiction is implicated when a virtual currency is used in a derivatives contract, or if there's fraud or manipulation involving a virtual currency traded in interstate commerce. Beyond instances of fraud or manipulation, the CFTC generally does not oversee, quote, spot or cash market exchanges and transactions involving virtual currencies that do not utilize margin, leverage, or financing. Yeah, these are all areas where if the CFTC actually has a role, that's where it belongs. In margin, leverage, financing.
not in ordinary transactions. Continuing. Examples of permitted activities. Number 1. Terra Exchange LLC, a swap execution facility, SCF, registered with the CFTC, entered into the virtual currency market in 2014 by listing a Bitcoin swap for trading. Trading on an SCF platform is limited to, quote, eligible contract participants, a type of sophisticated trader which includes various financial institutions and persons with assets above specified statutory minimums, i.e. you have to have the money. Number 2, North American Derivatives Exchange, Inc., NADEX, is a designated contract market, DCM, listed binary options traded on the Terra Bitcoin price index from November 2014 to December 2016. Retail customers may trade on NADEX. Number 3, LedgerX LLC, registered with the CFTC as an SCF and Derivative Clearing Organization, DCO, in July of 2017. It plans to list digital currency options. Examples of prohibited activities. Number 1, price manipulation of a virtual currency traded in interstate commerce. That makes like 99% of what's going on in virtual currency markets illegal. Bullet point 2, prearranged or wash trading in an exchange-traded virtual currency swap or futures contract. I don't know about that. Bullet point 3, a virtual currency futures or options contract or swap traded on a domestic platform or facility that is not registered with the CFTC as an SCF or DCM. Bullet point 4, certain schemes involving virtual currency marketed to retail customers such as off-exchange financed commodity transactions with persons who fail to register with the CFTC. Okay, whatever. ICOs, virtual tokens, and CFTC oversight. Bullet point 1. The Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, recently released a report about an initial coin offering, or ICO, the Dow report. Bullet point 2. The Dow report explains that, quote, the Dow is an example of a decentralized autonomous organization which is a virtual organization embodied in computer code and executed on a distributed ledger or blockchain. Bullet point 3. Investors exchanged Ether, a virtual currency, for virtual DAO tokens to fund projects in which the investors would share in anticipated earnings. DAO tokens could be resold on web-based platforms. Bullet point 4. Based on the facts and circumstances, the SEC determined that DAO tokens are, quote, securities under the federal securities laws. Bullet point 5. There is no inconsistency between the SEC's analysis and the CFTC's determination that virtual currencies are commodities and that virtual tokens may be commodities or derivatives contracts depending on the particular facts and circumstances. And you know what? Let me define it for you here, CFTC. Ethereum and the DAO are a perfect example of a quote-unquote security in that all of the tokens that are issued on this, they're backed by a volume of Ethereum. So they take 10,000 Ethereum and they say this is the base, and all of the tokens that we issued are this is the base for it. It's like a gold-backed security, And so that's what makes it a quote-unquote security, because even in the code, and I think this is true for at least Bancor,
even in the code of several of these ICOs, they may create more tokens at a later date and completely at their discretion without consultation of any of the traders or any of the investors in the fucking thing. They could just wave the magic wand and create more virtual tokens and issue them out there. Okay? And that's where the SEC and the CFTC can interdict, because that is an action that you're taking that isn't necessarily going to comport with the interests of the traders of your tokens. So you could be issuing more tokens just so you could burn some of them and still have some, right? And in the meantime, there's going to be a little bit of market lag there, and you're going to be making more than you should on those tokens, because the rest of the market will not have, at least emotionally at least, accounted for the additional volume coming in. You know, they're not calculating that as a factor in their trading, because they don't have to worry about that shit with regard to Bitcoin, because nobody can wave a magic wand and create more Bitcoin. We already know there are all X amount of Bitcoin already out there. Anyway, continuing on. Risks of virtual currencies. Bullet point 1. While virtual currencies have potential benefits, the emerging space also includes various risks, including 1. Operational risks. 2. Cybersecurity risks. 3. Speculative risks. 4. Fraud and manipulation risks. Bullet point 2. Virtual currencies are relatively unproven and may not perform as expected. For example, some have questioned whether public distributed ledgers are in fact immutable. Now, I'd like to make another clarification for you on this, CFTC. There are in fact mutable distributed ledgers out there. There are patents written for these, as a matter of fact. If you need to, go ahead and check with the patent office. There are actually patents out there for mutable, editable blockchains or distributed ledgers, whichever the case may be. Bullet point 3. Investors and users of virtual currencies should educate themselves about these and other risks before getting involved. Oh my goodness, I share an opinion with the CFTC. What is the second exiting axiom of coin metal? Those of you who are regular listeners already know the answer to this question. It is do your homework. Do your homework. Do your homework. Virtual currency operational risk. Bullet point 1. Conduct extensive research before giving any money or personal information to a virtual currency platform. Oh my goodness, absolutely sound advice. Thank you, CFTC. Bullet point 2. The virtual currency marketplace is comprised of many different platforms where you can convert one type of virtual currency into another or into real currency if offered. Bullet point 3. Many of these platforms are not subject to the supervision which applies to regulated exchanges. For example, if they exchange in only certain spot or market or cash market transactions and do not utilize margin, leverage, or financing, they may be subject to federal and state money transmission and anti-money laundering laws, but they do not have to follow all of the rules that regulated exchanges operate under. And just a side point here, I have stated multiple times, Lightning Network and payment channels, money transmission, motherfuckers, money transmission. When you're broadcasting your transactions back out to the blockchain for to close your payment channel, you are transmitting money, motherfucker. And if you're involving anybody else in your transactions, you are a custodian. Continuing on. Bullet point 4.
Some virtual currency platforms may be missing critical system safeguards and customer protection related systems. Without adequate safeguards, customers may lose some or all of their virtual currency assets. God damn. Come on, CFTC, you gotta add rect. That's rect. Virtual currencies, cybersecurity risk. Bullet point 1, keep your property in safe accounts, i.e. your hard wallet, and carefully verify digital wallet addresses. Absolutely copy and paste it. Make sure you're typing it out. It's always best policy. Number 2, some platforms may mix customer assets in shared accounts at a bank for real currency or a digital wallet for virtual currency. This may affect whether or how you can withdraw your currency. Bullet point 3. Depending on the structure and security of the digital wallet, some may be vulnerable to hacks, resulting in the theft of virtual currency or loss of customer assets. In sub-bullet point, if a bad actor gains access to your private key, it can take your virtual currency with limited or no recourse. Bullet point 4. When transferring virtual currency, make sure to confirm the destination wallet address even when using, quote, copy and paste. It is possible for hackers to change digital wallet addresses on your computer. God damn, these guys did their homework. Good on you, CFTC. Virtual currency speculative risk. Bullet point 1. Only invest what you are willing and able to lose. Oh my goodness, suddenly I love the CFTC. They're giving solid investment advice. Love it. Bullet point 2. The virtual currency marketplace has been subject to substantial volatility and price swings. Bullet point 3. An individual or coordinated group trading a large amount of virtual currency at once could affect the price depending on the overall amount of trading in the marketplace. Bullet point 4. Periods of high volatility with inadequate trade volume may create adverse market conditions, leading to harmful effects, such as customer orders being filled at undesirable prices. Sounds like the last Ether crash, doesn't it? Or flash crash, rather. 5. Some advertisements promise guaranteed returns. This can be a common tactic with fraudulent schemes. And just a side note there, CFTC, I'm really tempted to do another episode devoted solely to earmarks of scam coins and scams. And I will say this unequivocally. Any advertisement promising you guaranteed returns is a scam. I don't give a fuck who they are. I don't give a fuck what certification they have. They are a scam. There is no promised guaranteed return anywhere, least of all in cryptocurrencies. There's no guarantee that any of this shit will be happening tomorrow. Well, I don't know. I strongly doubt the Bitcoin network is going to collapse anytime soon. I'm just saying. There are no guaranteed returns. I don't give a fuck. I don't care if we're talking about gold. Okay? You can have all the gold in the world, and there could be, that same thing they throw at us when it comes to Bitcoin. What if all the electricity goes out? Well, dude, if all the electricity goes out, your gold just became shiny rocks that you might be able to defend yourself with. Because, unless you've got a fucking foundry that you're making circuitry and shit with, it's completely useless to you for all of the other quote-unquote intrinsic value that gold has. I mean, maybe when there's some sort of semblance of civilization, that you can maybe barter with your neighbors without having to worry about them shooting you or trying to eat you or something like that. Okay, maybe then gold will be worth more than being a shiny rock.
But I'm sorry, man. Electricity goes out, that's what it is. It's a fucking shiny rock. It might as well be the best fucking boat anchor you've ever owned. Continuing on. Bullet point, virtual currency, fraud and manipulation risk. And this is actually the last page of this bad boy, but anyway, continuing on. Number 1, carefully research the platform you want to use and pay close attention to the fee structure and systems safeguards. Excellent advice, CFTC. Bullet point 2. Unregistered virtual currency platforms may not be able to adequately protect against market abuses by other traders. And you know what? Who gives a fuck? For example, recent news articles discuss potential, quote, spoofing activity and other manipulative behavior that can negatively affect prices. Yeah, we do that shit all the time. Duh. But here's the trick, CFTC. You actually have to have the money to spoof. In most cases, I mean, unless you're actually operating on the margin angle of the exchange that you're working with, spoofing, yeah, you actually have to have this shit. Anyway, bullet point 3. Some virtual currency platforms may be selling you virtual currency directly from their own account. These types of transactions may give the platform unfair advantage and sometimes resemble fraudulent, quote, bucket shop schemes. Bullet point 4. There is also risk of Ponzi schemers and fraudsters seeking to capitalize on the current attention focused on virtual currencies. And that is it. That is the CFTC's primer on virtual currencies. And I've got to say, I'm impressed with some aspects of this. Most specifically, the portion with risks of virtual currencies. I have to say, those were probably the most realistic characterizations of risks that I've seen from a governing organization concerning cryptocurrencies to date. I think probably the only more realistic assessment I've heard from a governing body so far has been from the Finnish government, where they pretty much said, this shit doesn't need regulation. It regulates itself. We could just sit and watch it, I guess. Maybe compensate somebody if they can prove that they were actually ripped off. But again, these are just reactions, and that's the best that the CFTC can do. They talk about quote unquote unregulated exchanges and whatnot, and some of the risks involved, but they don't tell you straight out that you are guaranteed to lose your money in dealing with these unregistered entities. And I think that's comforting, honestly, because I think they've probably got enough perspective now to understand that saying shit like that wouldn't do anything for their credibility. And so, like I said, I would like to applaud the CFTC on their lack of speculation and their lack of scaremongering in this. However, I will say that in like the role of the CFTC and some of the other aspects of this, that this does need some clarification. There are some known unknowns that are listed as unknowns in this assessment that are actually known knowns that should at least be provided as examples for known knowns or examples of potential frauds and so on and so forth. Like they did refer to a cryptocurrency pegged to a fiat currency or in some way, shape, or form. They could have just as easily put in Paycoin there as an example, a known of what that kind of scheme looks like. Also, guaranteed returns. We have seen multiple scams, outright scams already in this space, and they all had promises of guaranteed returns. They could all be listed there as at least footnotes or references of that type of behavior. And where I think that's instructive, CFTC, is this, that you do instruct people to do their homework. Well, the types of things I'm talking about, they would at least be examples of things that would give them further indication of what to look for. You know, like Paycoin saying straight out that their exchange rate is going to be $20 a fucking Paycoin. I knew on its face that was bullshit. And I'm like, I just sat there and like, you want to tell me you actually believe this shit? You know, and I plastered that shit all over Twitter when I saw it. It's just like, this is complete bullshit. I don't know what the fuck you people are talking about. And then it turned out not too long afterward that, in fact, they were insolvent and their coin descended down to hell in value. And that was that. Too bad. So sad. Should have done your homework. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down into a little bit of music. And I have not played any Ministry. And, you know, I've gone quite a bit without any music so far. So, I'm feeling the need for a punch in the face. And so, what the fuck is that? Punch in the face. Punch in the face. There it is. So here it is. Ministry, Punch in the Face. Here on Coin Metal. And that was the Ski Mask Way. And it's with that in mind that I'd like to close out this episode with this quick little article here. And I'd been kind of holding off on it. This one's on Forbes. And it was written by Kenneth Raposa. Clearly penis. No date or time on. Oh, wait. October 18th, 2017 at approximately 2:04 p.m. China's Bitcoin ban no match for stateless cryptocurrency market. It's official. Blockchain technology has beat one of the biggest authorities on Earth. The decentralized nature of what has become the backbone of the cryptocurrency craze has proven its mettle. Bitcoin and a host of other highly speculative digital currencies live another day. Last month, China banned mainland residents from trading in cryptocurrencies on exchanges and made it illegal for Chinese startups to raise funds via initial coin offerings, a hybrid of crowdfunding, venture capital, and initial public offerings, to put it simply. Bitcoin prices fell. Ether prices fell, and then cryptocurrency startups shook it all off. It was as if they were punched in the face, shook the cobwebs out of their head, and remembered that this whole blockchain thing is decentralized and autonomous. That's the point. Banned in one country, moved to another. Now they're back on their feet in most cases, like a Terminator cyborg, hard to knock down. Bitcoin prices are over $5,000. China's regulations might have stopped a few startups for raising funds, but the general consensus is this is temporary. Quote, the ethos behind blockchain has been tested, says Ken Sengha, COO of Open Money and Open Project in San Francisco. Quote, a central organized and powerful authority, China, said no. And we all have been tested worldwide because of it. But the system flexes its muscles. It's doing what it's supposed to do. Sit, stay, good dog. Not even an obedient service dog can sit still forever. Sengha was going to launch an ICO in September for Open Money, a developer's platform like Java that would allow app makers to include user options to purchase their products with cryptocurrencies in app stores. The Chinese ban put their ICO on hold. Most of their investors were Chinese. Startups from San Francisco to Moscow had similar problems.
Malta-based Providence Casino, a physical crypto coin casino being planned and shooting for an ICO this year, was initially targeting Chinese investors in the mainland. They were banned from doing so. Instead of marketing to Chinese en masse, investors are only brought on board if they have personal relationships with the company founders, a sort of who-you-know system of project finance networking. Chinese augmented reality startup Metaverse reportedly lost out on a number of cross-border tie-ups and other deals. Its CEO, Eric Gu, did not want to talk on the record. Shanghai-based exchange C2CX had to temporarily scrap their planned joint venture with a Russian company called Kick ICO as key moneymen like Cybertrust of Switzerland dropped out for now. That project, a China-Russia exchange for Chinese investors to buy tokens of Russian startups listing on Kick ICO, is still planned once the dust settles on the regulatory environment, the two partners said. Quote, China is a main source of crypto investing, and the bans just mean that the capital will go to projects based elsewhere because the local ICO platforms will not be able to attract new startups, says Scott Freeman, CEO of C2CX. Quote, for China, financing their blockchain companies is just going to happen outside of China. For foreigners looking to tap Chinese money, they will either wait a while or look elsewhere. People are adjusting. Companies are adjusting. Chinese blockchain developer Buybox simply moved to Estonia. Good on you. Quote, let's put it this way. They've opened up in Estonia after the ban and moved fast, said Vlad Dobrov, a blockchain investing consultant based in Singapore. Quote, as you can clearly see from their website, from every angle, they are still targeting Chinese investors. Their founders all came from the top Chinese exchange. They know what they are doing. There are ways around the ban, everyone will tell you. They include more peer-to-peer investing done in private rather than the traditional Kickstarter-esque crowdfunding method that some startups use on ICO platforms like KickICO in Moscow, now gathering hundreds of new tech companies, including American ones. That means that clearly non-Chinese ICOs didn't kill their startup funding plans because of bans in China and subsequent bans in South Korea. Instead, most put their plans to launch on pause to figure out ways to legitimize their activity and find the right investors now that simple crowdfunding things, since simply crowdsourcing these things in China is illegal under the ban. Chinese with crypto wallet accounts in Singapore, Hong Kong, London, and elsewhere are still buying tokens of companies listing on exchanges and still speculating in cryptocurrencies. Open Money found Chinese start money. They built relationships with Chinese venture funds over the years and private asset managers who are now delving into the crypto markets. Those characters in China are known as, quote, whales. The whales tend to be large funds with tens of millions of dollars to throw around, often belonging to the family offices of Chinese multimillionaires and billionaires. Quote, we are definitely getting Chinese money and are still talking to a number of Chinese-based funds, Shanghai says. Well, just reflect on that a moment and think back to what we just read about the CFTC and what they've had to say with regard to cryptocurrencies, ICOs, and all that other business. And it kind of gives you an idea of how things will work out here. However, I will say this. What this article fails to recognize, acknowledge, or understand is that there will be plenty of development and launching happening in China. It's just not going to be on a regulated exchange. That's what you get for trying to get acknowledgement by the state. They acknowledge you and then they ban you. Sorry, man. Could have told you that when you were going into it. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and close out this episode, and we have not had a last dance planned quite yet, but I'm working on it. But we will be back again on Friday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time as normal, and I'll do my best to get this and the previous episode uploaded to my YouTube channel most expeditiously. However, I haven't gotten quite to that yet. Been up to my ass and other shit I'm doing, so. But in any case, I will do my best to get that uploaded to the YouTube channel, so if you did miss any part of it, you may catch it there. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate the support. And until Friday, I want you all to trade safe, do your homework, and watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else will do it for you. Thank you again for listening, and you all have an excellent evening.